Come closer tonight. I want to tell you a story not about war, not about kings, and not about great adventures. This is the story of a man who slowly became invisible while everyone around him was still looking straight through him. Every morning before the city fully awakened, an old man walked to the same quiet park. He never hurried. There was nowhere he needed to be. The trees had already learned his footsteps. The wooden bench seemed to be waiting just for him. Other elderly people passed by smiling politely. Some walked their dogs. Some exercised. Some greeted him with a silent nod. Yet no one truly knew him. His name was Elias. Every morning he sat on the same bench watching strangers rush through life. Young people stared at glowing phone screens. Parents hurried after children. Buses came and disappeared. The whole city seemed to be racing toward tomorrow. But Elias lived somewhere else. His heart still belonged to yesterday. 6 years earlier, he had buried the love of his life. After her funeral, his only son insisted they sell the old family house. "You'll be safer with us," his son had said. "You shouldn't live alone anymore." It sounded like kindness. So Elias agreed. They moved into a modern apartment high above the city. Everything was newer, brighter, cleaner. But somehow it never felt like home. There was no small garden. No birds outside his window. No old wooden gate waiting to welcome him back. Only concrete, glass, elevators, and silence. Every evening when the apartment grew quiet, he found himself listening for footsteps that would never return. Sometimes, without realizing it, he still turned his head expecting to hear his wife call his name. Every afternoon after returning from the park, Elias followed the same quiet routine. He made himself a cup of tea, sat alone at the small kitchen table, and across from him, the empty chair never changed. Sometimes he almost reached for a second cup before remembering she was gone. After tea, he disappeared into the smallest room in the apartment. To everyone else it looked like nothing more than an old storage room. But to Elias it was an entire lifetime. Shelves were filled with worn notebooks, yellowed pages, faded photographs, and thick folders tied together with old ribbons. Every page carried a memory. Every sentence carried a dream. Long ago Elias had believed words could change people. He had spent his entire life writing articles, poems, essays, stories that no one seemed to read anymore. In the corner stood an old typewriter. The black paint had worn away from years of faithful work. Its keys no longer shined, but when Elias gently touched them, they still felt alive. His son had bought him a modern computer. "It's faster," he had said. "Everything is digital now." Elias smiled politely. But every time he sat in front of that bright screen, something felt missing. A computer made no sound. It had no heartbeat. But his old typewriter spoke with every letter. Click, click, click. Those sounds had once filled an entire house. His wife used to smile whenever she heard them. "You're writing again," she would whisper. And somehow those simple words always made him write a little longer. Now the room answered with silence. One evening Elias was carefully arranging his old manuscripts back onto the shelves. Every folder had its place. Every page had a memory. Just then his daughter-in-law stepped quietly into the room. She looked around and sighed. "There are so many papers," she said softly. "They collect dust. Maybe we should finally throw away the ones nobody needs." Elias froze. His fingers remained on the folder he was holding. He wanted to explain, to tell her that those papers were not just paper. They were years of hope, sleepless nights, forgotten dreams, pieces of his life. But instead he simply smiled and nodded. Maybe, he whispered. She smiled politely, thanked him, and walked away. The room became silent once again. Elias slowly picked up one of the oldest notebooks. Inside, on the very first page, was a sentence written many years ago. Words never grow old, only people do. He stared at those words for a long time. Then he gently closed the notebook. For the first time, he wondered if perhaps the world had stopped needing people like him. Outside, the city was glowing with thousands of lights. But inside one small room, an old writer quietly felt himself fading away. As evening slowly settled over the city, Elias stepped onto the small balcony. It had become his favorite place, not because it was beautiful, but because from there he could watch life continue without him. Thousands of headlights flowed through the streets like rivers of light. People hurried home. Children laughed. Restaurants filled. The city was alive. Yet somehow he had never felt more alone. Behind him, he heard the apartment door open. His son had returned from work. They shared dinner together. But conversation was brief, almost careful, as if everyone was trying not to disturb the silence. After a few moments, his son looked up. Dad, you spend too much time thinking about the past. The world has changed. You should try to live for today. Elias quietly lowered his eyes. He wanted to answer, to explain that memories were not a place he chose to live. They were the only place where he still felt at home. But instead he simply smiled. Perhaps, he said softly. Later that night, while the apartment slept, Elias returned to his small room. He gently placed a blank sheet of paper into his old typewriter. He rested his fingers on the keys, but they never moved. For the first time in many years, he couldn't find a single word worth writing. He slowly removed the paper, folded it, and placed it inside one of the old folders. As he turned off the lamp, the room disappeared into darkness. But somewhere deep inside, Elias already knew that the hardest chapter of his life had not yet begun.